make up 80% of the species on Earth. There are over 200 million of them for every human. They play a critical role, pollinating crops, decomposing waste, and supporting food chains. But a German study from 2017 has caused worldwide alarm, showing that in some areas, flying insect numbers have fallen by over 75% in the last 27 years, and humans are to blame. If development and pesticide use continue, we could soon face what some experts are calling insectageddon, the ecological collapse of the insect population. Were this to happen, it would change life on Earth as we know it.
I'm Yara Bumalham in New Zealand, where an enterprising group of scientists are bringing a dinosaur-era insect back from the brink of extinction.
And I'm Gilary Darabi in Great Britain to see how overlooked industrial wastelands are being turned into bug reserves.
New Zealand is rich in wildlife, and because of its isolation, there are hundreds of plants and animals that evolved here that are found nowhere else. But human-introduced pests have threatened and even wiped out many species. One of those is the native wetapunga.
It's one of the world's heaviest insects and has been around for 190 million years, even outliving the dinosaurs. They used to be found all over New Zealand, but now they're close to extinction. These amazing ancient creatures play a vital role in the ecosystem, and without them, other native plants and wildlife could also disappear forever. The Auckland Zoo has launched a set of programs to save the wetapunga or weta, starting with a new interactive exhibition that aims to excite the next generation about insects.
Like a bug's lair.
Featuring giant 3D model insects with educational games and puzzles, Bug Lab shows just how fascinating insects are.
That's like a rhinoceros beetle, I think.
So what do you like about these?
They look really big. You don't see these every day, but these are really cool to look at.
These children have never seen a wetapunga, yet had they lived several generations ago, they would have spotted them in the garden. Learning Centre guide Kirsty McFarlane explains why we should all care more about our native insects.
They're fascinating and people just dismiss them. And not only that, they're really, really important for the environment. I mean, it's how everything works together, and without insects, we wouldn't be here.
How important is it to teach younger people about insects?
Well, they're the future, right? So they're the ones that are going to have to be helping to keep insects safe and to stop them from becoming endangered. If they can really connect with insects at that young age and fall in love with them, I guess, then that's going to be great for our future.
Exhibitions can be great for raising awareness for causes, but it's just on the other side of the zoo that some really significant work is being done to protect and revive the threatened wetapunga.
I'm meeting Ben Goodwin, an entomologist at Auckland Zoo's wetapunga breeding program.
Hey Ben.
Hey.
How are you?
Good, thanks. How are you? This is where our wetapunga are kept. After you.
This is one of the world's only industrialised insect conservation programs, providing the optimum light and temperature conditions for wetapunga.
So these are the ones that you've bred?
Yep, so we've got some adult wetapunga in here.
That's incredible. This is massive.
They're one of the heaviest insects in the world. So this is an adult female, so they don't get too much bigger than this.
Wetapunga can weigh up to 70 grams. That's the equivalent of 3 small mice.
Do you think I can hold
I
her?
think you can. The hooks are a bit sharp.
Wow. That's incredible. Do they jump? Do they fly?
No, so they're totally flightless. They've got really good camouflage. They're nocturnal. So they're very, very well adapted for bird predators, but mammals can just smell them out.
So is that why it started to die out?
They were considered really common in the sort of middle part of the 1800s. And then humans accidentally established rats in New Zealand. And at one turn of the century, they were basically extinct everywhere aside from one island.
So besides the fact that they're incredible, why would you save the wetapunga?
They have an important functions to play in the ecology. So it eats foliage, it does massive poos, and they fertilise the ground. There are species which I read about in books as a kid, so I feel quite privileged to be working with them now.
The breeding program started in 2012 with only 12 weta. Since then, over 3,500 insects have been released onto a few key islands, which still provide the ideal conditions for them to flourish. Today, Ben's readying a batch for transport.
So these will be the easiest ones to do, because they're the largest ones. So this whole thing comes out. They like to hide in these little tubes.
Tiny. And is this the size that you want to be taking to the island?
Yeah, once they've got a bit of size on them, they're a little bit more robust, they've got fewer predators, then they're safe to go out into the wild.
We'll just pop her
Yeah, if
here.
you just touch her with your, yep, that's the one.
Oh.
Right, so that's the first female, so I'll just do a tally here.
And what's the success rate of your breeding program?
Up to about 80% survival rate, which is really, really good.
Yeah. Do you think they're upset that we've woken them up?
I'm sure they are. That's fine, they've got somewhere to hang on to.
Okay, great.
So that's everything which we're going to be releasing tonight. Let's get out of here.
With our 385 weta packed and ready to move, it's time to head to the docks. We're off to a private island in the Hauraki Gulf, one of 4 still hospitable to weta. It's a 1-hour boat journey from the mainland. Rod and Sue Noroita, the island's owners, are avid conservationists who have given their land over to the protection of native species.
Hello, you must be Rod.
Yeah, I am. Hi, Yara.
Yara.
How are you?
And Sue?
Hi, Yara. I'm Sue.
Yeah. Have you always been involved in the releases?
As much as possible.
In 2003, Rod and Sue finally rid the island of invasive mammals like rats, stoats and feral cats, making it a safe home for wetapunga.
We'd never really looked at ourselves as owners, but more as guardians of this wonderful place that we've had the privilege of growing up in.
How does releasing the wetapunga onto the island actually fit into all of your plans?
So they're critical to the health of the island. Nothing exists in isolation.
So the wetapunga are a bit of one of the missing links for building up the ecosystem
It's
here.
part of the jigsaw.
Even though weta are a crucial piece of the landscape here, the young insects still need to be handled carefully, which means selecting the perfect spot for their new home.
This is like a wildlife paradise. How do you choose the sites where you release wetas?
Yeah, so this is one of our release sites here. So we want to look for a place that's got lots of hiding spots and somewhere that's got lots and lots of good food plants as well.
Oh my goodness, this is incredible. How old is this tree?
So it's estimated to be about 800 years old. You can see there's a fecal pellet from one of the wetapunga.
Oh,
So
that's
it's
massive.
a good way to sometimes detect their presence if you can't actually find them.
And that's obviously really important for the ecosystem here.
Yeah, so that's all packed full of nutrients, so they're just recycling what they're eating, and that's good for the plants and the soil health.
Finding these droppings isn't only a sign of a healthy environment, but also evidence of an already thriving population that will surely welcome newcomers.
This is kind of the ideal spot, probably the best place in the whole island for them to be released onto. You can see it's got heaps and heaps and heaps of hidey holes for wetapungas. Here's one of their preferred food plants. They can go from this tree and disperse right across the whole forest here because it's got a huge crown on it.
The weta will be released at night when they are most active. This pink tape will help us find this spot in the dark later on.
I can't believe they've trusted me with these wetas.
All right, it's the start of the release site here.
Yep.
You can see how much more active they are than this morning. And there you go.
There she goes.
First one in.
Are we going to release more on this trunk?
No, I think we'll move along.
Yeah.
And you go. That's all
So
right.
how important is it for you to re-establish wetapunga here?
Oh, it's awesome because it's just giving back something that probably would have been here years and years ago. Hopefully their droppings will add to the forest. Come on. No, he's feisty. He wants to.
Another one?
Maybe just give him a real soft touch on the back.
Yeah. There you go. Up. So how much longer do you think you'll be doing these sorts of releases for?
We've got a few more releases to do, and then after that it's mainly just monitoring the populations. Cool.
That one's a big one.
Wetapunga now exists on 4 islands. As invasive predators are slowly removed from other locations, that number is expected to rise. The hope is that one day, wetapunga could return to the mainland, where they once thrived. There is certainly the will for change here in New Zealand. More people and institutions are taking action in support of native species. The government has even committed to rid the country of human-introduced pests by 2050. There is still a long way to go, but at least the future is now looking optimistic for the wetapunga.
A plant's reproductive cells are found in its pollen. When an insect visits a flower to feed off its nectar, pollen rubs off from the male stamen onto the insect and sticks to the hairs on its body. As the insect moves on to another flower, grains of pollen are transferred to the female stigma. That's when pollination happens, so that seeds and fruit are produced. Around 75% of all crop species require pollination by an animal, often insects including bees, but also other animals such as birds and bats. But 2 out of 5 insect pollinators are disappearing, and with them our food supply. In southwest China, wild bees have been eradicated by intensive farming, so people are doing the work the bees once did. Every year in Hanwan County, thousands of villagers painstakingly pollinate every single apple and pear blossom by hand, using a long stick attached to brushes or chicken feathers. The method works with some high-value produce, but there simply aren't enough people to pollinate all the world's crops. Much more effective would be to nurture pollinating insect populations in orchards by banning pesticides and planting natural habitats. Bees and other insects have been safeguarding our food supply for millennia. The least we can do in return is to provide them with what they need to survive.
With a long history of habitat loss and industrialized farming, Europe has seen some of the worst cases of insect decline and extinction in the world. I've come to the UK to see how old industrial sites are being turned into bug reserves in an attempt to reverse this worrying trend. Professor Dave Goulson has been studying insects for over 20 years and understands just how damaging their rapid decline could be. Dr. Goulson, why are insects disappearing?
There's a whole host of challenges that they face, all to do with us. Modern farming methods have become very reliant on using lots and lots of pesticides, which mean the farmer can grow a perfect monoculture with not an insect in sight. The entire botanical diversity surrounding us is just a handful of species instead of the hundreds of species that used to live here. And a lot of people think that this is what the British countryside should look like, but it's only been like this for a few decades. It basically makes the landscape uninhabitable for most insects.
Is there anything we can do to turn this around, or have we sort of passed the tipping point?
For some species, it's too late. Some have gone extinct, but for the majority, they're still here. And we need to make sure we look after them. We should be absolutely terrified about this. It should be something that everyone is talking about and everyone is keen to fix, because if we don't, we face a really bleak future without them.
That's a call to arms if there ever was one. And here in the UK, some groups are taking the warnings of entomologists seriously. I'm on my way to Canvey to see the UK's first reserve for insects. I'm due to meet Dr. Sarah Henshaw, an entomologist at BugLife, an organization dedicated to the protection of insects. But this desolate ex-industrial or brownfield site is not exactly what I was expecting.
Hello, you must be Sarah.
Hi there.
Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you
I'm
too.
Guillory.
Hi. Welcome to Canvey. Just through those gates there is one of the most biodiverse and wildlife-rich sites in Britain. So do you want to take a look?
I really would. What did this place used to be?
So this site used to be an oil refinery. You can see remnants of industry all around us. It's been abandoned for more than 40 years.
And why is an old oil refinery an ideal spot for protecting bugs?
It hasn't been managed, there's been no pesticides, so it's providing natural habitats that have been lost in the wider landscape. Wildlife is using this as a refuge and really thriving here.
Sarah, what's this? It looks like a helicopter should be landing any minute now.
It's a large tarmac base. There's about 30 of them across the site. They would have housed the large oil storage tankers, but as you can see, nature is clawing back.
And how many species of insects are there on the site?
There's over 2,500 different species on this site alone, including some that are found nowhere else. This is why this site is the UK's first bug reserve.
Can we try to find some?
We can.
A little hunting?
One of the things about this brownfield site which makes it so amazing, there's all these different habitats in a really small place. So bare open ground to bask, burrow and nest, flowers to feed on, scrub and trees to overwinter in and provide a bit of shelter. It's an amazing mosaic. It's got everything they need all in one place.
So why are these insects so important to the natural landscape?
So we need healthy ecosystems, and invertebrates indicate that for us. If the bugs are happy, then the megafauna is happy, so the mammals and the birds are also happy. So we need to look after the bugs and everything else will fall into line.
Canvey has been described as a little brownfield rainforest, and I can definitely see why. There are bugs everywhere. So many that a team of volunteers carry out surveying work throughout the whole year. Rory and Imogen already have their morning's work set out on their table, which doubles as a lab.
Hi guys. Hiya. Nice to meet you.
What's going on in here? This guy's really active.
So they're all ground beetles. Those are predatory species that are loving this bare open ground. At Canvey we've got a few species that are actually only found here.
Oh. Did you catch these all today or over the past week?
Yeah, even though it's quite a cold spring day today, you still see there's a rich diversity of life here on Canvey.
And what will this help you establish moving forward?
So it'll give us a good baseline of what's here, and then that way we can see how it's improved and what we're seeing more of, what we're seeing less of. Doing regular studies like this in such a biodiverse hotspot like Canvey is really important to see how the rest of the country's doing.
Do you release the insects or do you take them back to a laboratory? What happens to them?
Most of them we can ID on site, so we can release them then later that day. However, some of them we might need to take back to have a better look at.
What kind of caterpillar is this?
So this is a lackey moth caterpillar.
There they are.
They live inside this protective web on the hedgerows. You used to find them everywhere in the UK, but due to modern landscapes, you'd hardly find these caterpillars. And Canvey we've seen them all over the place.
I think that's just a perfect example. It shows what these abandoned sites, that they're acting as real refuges for species that are declining elsewhere, but they're surviving on sites like this.
Since BugLife started surveying nearly 10 years ago, 3 insect species believed to be extinct have been discovered here at Canvey. It's exciting, and I can't resist trying to find a few myself.
Okay.
Whacking the vegetation from side to side.
All right. I got something.
Excellent.
Look.
This is the true bug here.
Yeah, here we have a look. It's hoverfly.
Hoverfly.
So they're really critically important to the ecosystem, and a lot of our insect life are quite dowdy little flies. So we should be working to conserve them as well as our more spectacular butterflies and bumblebees.
Yeah.
Let's take this one back to the lab.
It all seems like good fun, but this surveying is crucial. Not only for monitoring insect numbers, but also managing the land so that it provides the best possible habitat for these creatures to thrive. Imogen has offered to show me a declining species that needs some special treatment.
What do we have in here, Imogen?
So that's a brown-banded carder bee, and it's one of the 200 different species of bees and wasps that you can find on this site. And a lot of work we do here is to remove some vegetation so they have some bare ground that they can burrow into and make what we call bee cliffs.
Removing vegetation sounds counterintuitive to a nature lover like myself. But Imogen is the expert, so I'll wait to see what she has to show me. She's taking me to find an elevated spot to create our bee cliffs.
So here we are, we just pop the bees down. So what we're going to be doing is we're going to be pulling back a lot of the grass and a lot of the scrub. A lot of people, when they want to save invertebrates, they think that they have to plant these wildflower meadows, which is incredibly important, but also they do really need these nice bare areas that they can live in.
And how do they occupy this space? Do they sort of burrow into the sand?
Yeah, so what they'll do is they'll probably find a little hole like this one here, and they'll dig a little nest into that, and then they'll lay their eggs.
I feel like we've made a good dent in this. Can we release the bees?
Yeah, definitely.
Oh, here you go. It's so amazing to be so close to it.
Especially when it's such a rare species.
When we often think of conservation and saving species, we just think of these meadows and these perfectly manicured landscapes, but we're in the middle of a wasteland.
It's not a wasteland to them, it's their home, and it's in fact the last place they can be in this area. So it's really important that we take that into consideration when we make decisions about land.
To date, Canvey Wick has been a resounding success. But to save Britain's insects, more land must be given over to their protection. Sarah wants me to see another site that Buglife is looking to reclaim 20 kilometers down the road at West Thurrock Marshes. If successful, it could add an additional 7 hectares of protected habitat to the cause.
It's been acquired, but there's been very little activity on this site. I've only been here a few times, so I'm really excited to show you. Before this site was abandoned, it was a coal-fired power station. And this black substrate is the fly ash, which is the byproduct. Later on in the summer, these low-nutrient, poor-quality soils really favour lots of wildflowers that bumblebees, wasps, hoverflies, butterflies will really love and take advantage of. But to the untrained eye, it looks like wasteland, so we've had to do a huge amount of work campaigning and raising awareness, and we hope this is going to be one of our next bug reserves in the UK.
Do you have a lot of resistance when you approach developers and local governments when you want to talk about conservation on sites that could earn a lot of money for them?
Of course, because this is prime development land. But unfortunately, in just 10 years, over half of the brownfield or post-industrial land in the Thames Gateway have already been developed. So it demonstrates the need for sites such as Canvey Wick, and hopefully this in the future, they're preserved and saved because we're losing this resource quicker than we're even finding out how important it is. This site provides an amazing opportunity to challenge perception. And the key driver for this site is invertebrates, it's bugs, they are important. And I think we should have more of these, not only in the UK, but elsewhere in the world.
After hanging out with Sarah and her amazing team at Buglife, I don't think I can ever go by any piece of land, no matter how derelict and forgotten, and not see its full potential. And we really need to have this shift in perspective, because as our own species rapidly grows and industrializes land, every square inch counts. And by protecting our insect neighbors, we're ultimately safeguarding our own future.
Insect numbers are in steep decline. But across the globe, people are endeavouring to reverse this alarming trend. In the US, conservationists at Oregon Zoo are saving 2 local butterfly species by breeding and releasing as many as 2,000 along the coast each year. And an engineering student at Simon Fraser University in Canada has designed a real-time beehive monitoring system to track bee health through microphones and heat sensors. By helping to pinpoint the causes of colony collapse disorder, her invention has the potential to save millions of bees. The race is on to prevent the collapse of the planet's insect populations. If life on Earth is to continue as we know it, then we need to move fast.